Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is February the 11th, 2020, Tuesday morning. We're starting off the week. Well, this is how I start off the week anyway. Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I wasn't going to do this show. I wasn't going to do this. I wanted to wait till 25,000. But what the hell? We're at 20,000 subscribers. Very tiny in the big picture. Virtually non-existent in the big picture. But in a lot of cases, it's relative, and it's hard to believe. Hard to believe that we are at 20,000 subscribers. For those of you that may not know, I've actually had this channel since 2006. And I didn't do much with it. I guess in 2006, that would have put me as one of the many sort of maybe a few million that had the very first YouTube channel. And I mostly uploaded just Halloween stuff. And then it was in 2017. In 2015, I uploaded a few things in regards to The Force Awakens. But in 2017, that's when I really began to put my face out there like this with any sort of consistency. And I have a lot of on-camera experience, but so it was a natural sort of transition for me to just kind of start doing this kind of thing. But certainly, being a full-time voice actor, I'm used to sort of being in the background, and you might have heard my voice, but you wouldn't necessarily know my face. So to make that transition over to putting myself out there like this on a consistent, regular basis was pretty cool. And I had no plan for it. I just wanted to kind of just put myself out there, see what happens. I didn't really, because it wasn't my job per se. I just was like, let's see what happens. I just want to talk fucking Halloween. I want to talk Halloween. Let's fucking talk Halloween. And I wanted to do. Wait, where did I go? Oh my goodness, what happened? I'm not sure what happened there. Let's try that again. Oh, there we are. Not sure what happened there. It happens. Oh no, they cut him off. They cut me off. That's what happens, ladies and gentlemen. When you reach 20,000 subscribers and you start talking about it, they start to cut you off. And it's like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. It's crazy. But it's all right. I'm back now. I'll jump over to the other camera in a second. I like starting here. But yeah, so I had really no plan for what I was going to do. I just wanted to sort of talk Halloween, and I saw this void, what I saw as a void in talking about Halloween. So I was like, I got all this shit I want to say, and it was my girlfriend that encouraged me to, you got to get out there, you got to talk about it, So here I am, and I think at that time I had about 800 subs, which was accumulated, of course, from the little Halloween experimental shorts that I was uploading and Michael Myers shit. And but here we are, and 2.5 years later, almost 3 years later, we're at 20,000 subscribers now. I've had a few people reach out to me and say things like, Dave, why aren't you at like 30 or 40,000 subs? There seems to be other channels in your space that are gaining momentum at a faster rate. And that is true. And I will say, I told this to them and I'll say it to you. You have to understand the identity of the channels, right? Like I'm a very sort of, I'm in the horror space, I'm in the Halloween space, but I'm very niche-y in the sense of I'm not a movie reviewer, right? So I'm not uploading my thoughts and opinions on all kinds of different films, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think that's awesome, but I'm more niche-y per se, so I'm not bringing in the superhero, fans. I'm not bringing in, all sorts of different types of people. So it's very sort of niche-y. So I'm building, but more at a slower rate. If I was a movie reviewer and I was reviewing the latest and greatest, which I have no interest in doing, but if I was, then I might be maybe at 30 or 40,000 by now, right? Because you're starting to reach more people. So that's really the primary reason I would say why. But but I'm in no rush. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but on this channel, Lauren, it's fixed. It's fixed. I love your sense of humor, Lauren. But not once have I ever actually asked anybody to subscribe to my channel. Not once. It's not because I feel I'm above anybody who does that. Not at all. I just actually naturally never did that. And then it sort of dawned on me, like at around the 15,000 subscriber mark, that, geez, I never do that. You know what I mean? And now it's kind of a thing, you know? So, yeah, you know? But it's unbelievable. And the reason why I don't think I did, sort of maybe subconsciously, was because I didn't really care. Like, I love that people were subscribing to me, but I just was like, oh, I don't really... I'm doing this because I need to vent, you know? I'm doing this because I want to, and if anybody wants to listen and sort of glom on, then that's awesome, but you certainly don't have to, you know what I mean? But anyway, that could go on and on and on. But it's crazy to think that, again, small in the big picture, but still 20,000 is 20,000. And that's pretty cool to have 20,000 people subscribe to you. And I'm sure there's a few dead accounts in there somewhere. So maybe it's 19,740, who knows? But it's still cool nonetheless. And what's really cool about it is the engagement. You know, subscribers is really is important. It is, and it's fun. But there's a lot of channels out there that have boatloads of subscribers, but very poor and low views and viewer engagement. And there's a variety of reasons why that could be. And the thing that I noticed that's the best here, not the best, but that I really like on this channel more than the subscribers would be the viewer engagement. We're building a little community here, and we don't always have to agree. I know we don't always agree, but we're building that community, and that's what's awesome. It's like as I was saying on Two Dudes and Some Bullshit last night, I said, you know, people, it's so great to see people talking to each other in the chat room, not just asking questions. That's really cool because that shows that, you know, sometimes people, yeah, they tune in to listen to you, to watch you, but they're also tuning in because they're building sort of cyber virtual friends in the chat room that they really enjoy talking to as well. And there's like a conversation going on, and me talking about whatever it is I'm talking about is just extra. You know what I mean? And that's really cool. I really like that. That's really awesome. So yeah, I mean, again, small in the big picture, but pretty cool in the small picture. 20,000 subscribers. Here I am. We're on our way. We're on our way to 1 million, baby. Ease up there, McRae. But nonetheless, really cool. So I wanted to have a all Q&A today, just talking whatever you guys want to talk about. Whatever you guys want to talk about, let's celebrate together 20,000 subscribers as we march upward and onward here. And let's see, a super chat has already come in from the man himself, Todd Fair, great supporter of the channel. Todd says, Dave, congrats on 20,000 subs. Thank you, Todd. My question is, I believe Halloween Kills and Ends will completely ruin the franchise forever because Gordon Green and McRae don't know how to make a Halloween movie, and they ruined Halloween. Well, Todd, I think that's probably a little harsh, in my opinion, because you could make the argument that Halloween, I mean, anything after the original essentially ruined Halloween by making a sequel in and of itself. You are sort of ruining the original mystique and intent of the character. But I get what you're saying. But certainly, I mean, I think Halloween 5 has that title. I think Halloween Resurrection has that title. I think you could point to Rob Zombie's 1 and 2 having that title. I think there are many examples of many films in the franchise that have ruined and destroyed Halloween before Halloween 2018. I actually think Halloween 2018, it's not the sequel I think it should have been. It's not the execution I think it should have been. That's why I gave it a C+. But it's not a total disaster. It's a disaster. It's not it's Trump. It's not a total disaster. There are certain things in there that they did do right, which, as you've heard me say a few times, the things they did do right, they did very well, which makes the things they didn't do right that much more frustrating. If the entire movie was a shit show, then in my eyes, and it would be like, whatever, you know what I mean? But it's sort of it's a bittersweet thing because I'm like, I like that. I like what you're doing there. You know what I mean? But there's just, things I just don't agree with. I don't think Halloween Kills and Ends are going to ruin Halloween. it would have to be a catastrophic failure of epic proportions. It would have to be, either the political rhetoric and themes are just rampant throughout, and it's just, this is too preachy, it's too on the nose. What the fuck is this doing in a Halloween film? I don't think they're going to do that. I really don't. I know Tony Michael is really worried about that. I don't think they're going to do that. I think it's I would be stunned if they do. But you never say never. But no, I don't think it's going to ruin it. I actually have a feeling, although, again, I mean, I'm more of the theater of the mind kind of guy. Obviously, I said this months ago, long before the test screenings ever took place. I said that with a name like Halloween Kills and with a sequel, this is going to be a more violent, gratuitous sort of film, and apparently it is, and that doesn't. I have a feeling, and myself included, that I think I'm going to enjoy this movie more than I enjoyed the 2018 film. Not because it's the movie that I would have done, not because I agree with necessarily all the things they're doing, but because, again, of the expectations, of the sense of, well, they're now making a sequel to the 2018 film, so I sort of know what to expect. It's going to be that film, but on steroids. Okay. I kind of know what to expect. I know the visual style, the visual aesthetic, I understand David Gordon Green's horror directing sensibilities. I kind of know what to expect. We didn't know what to expect with the 2018 film. We were just hoping that it would be more in line with what came before. And there were certain things that were, but not as much as I think there needed to be. So I actually think, because we're just like, all right, it's going to be this kind of movie now. Okay. And then you can enjoy it for what it is. So I think actually more people will probably enjoy this movie. Ironically, for some. Let's see here. The Conspiracy Trifecta says, if you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be? One movie for the rest of my life. I don't know, maybe The Shawshank Redemption. Because Shawshank is one of those movies where it really sort of, it's one of the greatest motion pictures of all time ever created, period. But the message and the morals about hope and believing and redemption and is always a good movie and story to have in your back pocket when you're going through the shitty things in life. When you're going through the trials and tribulations of life. Halloween might be fun to watch, but it might not make you feel inspired to get out of whatever jam you're in. Or maybe it does. I don't know, right? But so for me, maybe The Shawshank, because that's a movie that really can inspire you. But at the same time, you can watch it not needing to feel inspired as well. It's just a great story, you know what I mean? But you can't help but feel just... after that film. Makes you feel good. You need a movie. If you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life, you need a movie that's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you feel good. I think that would be it. I don't know. Let's see here. Mark25 says, at Dave McRae, hey Dave, it's me, Billy, coming along. We both, will both you and Bruce star in it like in your previous fan films? No, Bruce and I are not going to be in the movie. We are just writing, directing, and producing. It's coming along. We are moving towards pre-production in the next few months. Our Indiegogo campaign will be launched probably in April. Again, I don't have the exact number yet of what we will need, but it's going to be in the ballpark of probably between $40,000 to $50,000. This is a legit film. So don't use the fan films that I've done before as the benchmark of the quality that you're, not that there's anything wrong with them, but I'm just saying we are taking this to the next level. Obviously working in the film industry here in, Bruce especially works directly in the film industry. He's the national manager of education and training at William F. White International in Toronto, which is Canada's largest distributor of motion picture, theatrical, and television equipment in the country. So when Hollywood comes up to Toronto, which they do a lot to shoot films, they usually, well, I would say usually because there is a competitor, but they will often rent from Whites, and that's all of, you can rent your cameras, your lighting, and grip and dolly tracks and there's all that kind of stuff. So Bruce is the national manager of education training there. He's been there for years. So we'll be utilizing White's obviously for equipment and the connections that we both have. And we really wanted to take this film to the next level, you know, in terms of production value and just really deliver something that Black Christmas fans and horror fans can be proud of. And really, you know, Never Hike Alone sort of has set in the world of horror, especially, set a new benchmark for what fan films could be. I mean, fan films, when I got into the game of fan films, they were your backyard after school, you know, video camera shooting with your friends, right? That's a fan film. Now, fan films are movies. They're movies. They're fan film by category because, well, you don't own the IP. You're not hired by the studio to actually make an official sequel or film. So by default, it's considered a fan film. But fan film is the when you think of quality in terms of fan films, that thing is changing now, you know, and that's thanks to, you know, films like Never Hike Alone and soon the prequel Never Hike in the Snow and Dylan's new Nightmare and so on and so forth. Fan films and many other Halloween fan films that are coming up as well. It's changing the game in terms of the quality and the production value. And that's what we want to do as well. We have the resources to do it. We just have to do it. So it takes a lot of time. I mean, there's a process that you go through in terms of the development phases and stages. There's the, you know, writing of the script. There's the shot list. There's the breakdown. There's the casting. There's the auditioning. It's a whole ordeal. You know, I mean, you might be making a fan film, but you know, it's a film. Now, it's a short film. It'll probably be about 25, 30 minutes long, but the process is nonetheless the same. So we are really excited about it. We're happy where we are. We're actually seeing a location this weekend. And then in the middle of March, we're also looking at another location. But in that time, we are obviously in the process of hiring our DP and then starting to get our cast together. And so hopefully by the time we launch the Indiegogo campaign in April, we'll have at least our DP and our main star cast, and maybe even some others as well. So we're excited. It's definitely coming along. It may be quiet on the outside, but there's a lot of stuff going on behind the closed doors. So thank you for the question. And because we're really excited about it. And hopefully when that campaign launches, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, hopefully we can raise the money we need, because if we can't raise the money we need, depending on how much we do make, we'll either have to start issuing refunds, right? Or take what we make and maybe shoot a scene from our script to use that as a portfolio piece, then to maybe hopefully show people what it was going to look like and hopefully maybe raise the money to do it. But ideally, we don't want to do that, right? I mean, filmmakers don't want to do that. We want to raise the money we need and deliver the full movie. You know what I mean? But when you have a budget, you know, when basically you say, okay, to do this, it's going to cost us, you know, $50,000. Well, we can't do that on $10,000, right? So it's really important that hopefully we'll be able to raise the money we need to make it a reality. But yeah, thanks for the question, man. Really, really appreciate that. Let me see. Did another super chat come in here? Hey, Dave, it's so bad. Oh, I think it is Todd Fair sent in another super chat. Thank you, Todd. Much appreciated, man. Love how you love to support the channel. Great supporter. Hey, Dave, I just believe since Halloween 2018 was so bad and the movie was more of a dark comedy than a slasher film, I believe the next two Halloween movies will be an embarrassment to the franchise. What do you think? Well, I don't know. I don't think I hated the 2018 film as much as you did. I certainly didn't like it per se. I can't say that I was a fan of it. I gave it a C+. I would be surprised if it was an utter embarrassment. I don't think it's going to be an embarrassment. I just have this feeling that people are going to enjoy the 2020 film, Halloween Kills, better. And I think part of that is expectations have you kind of know what to expect now in terms of the style, and they're ramping up the gore and the intensity. You know, it's the old George Lucas faster, more intense. Now, that can sometimes create the illusion that the movie is better than it actually is. So that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're watching. What's the story? What's the development like? What's the character interactions like? Do I believe that this entire thing is happening in one night? Do I believe the justifications for everybody's apparently, residual effects of how it's affected them? Because again, I haven't seen the film, but I imagine that when you're bringing back Marion and Tommy and Lindsay and Brackett, that the events from 1978 has affected them in similar and different ways. Do I believe that these events would affect these people that way and they're still struggling with these types of things? Do I believe, there's a lot of things that you have to ask yourself after you're done watching it. But do I think it's going to be a shit show? That depends what your definition is of a shit show, right? If your definition of a shit show is Halloween must be like this and anything beyond that is just garbage, then it'll probably be a shit show. I've sort of tempered my expectations because I'm like, we're not going to get that. We're never going to get that. So I'm just watching it for what it is. It's sort of how I watched the 2018 film, and I've said it's a very good, Halloween 2018 in my mind is actually a very good modern day slasher movie, but it's a shitty Halloween movie. You know what I mean? That's sort of kind of how I feel about it. Now, that doesn't mean everything about it is shitty. Again, I'm being harsh. Anybody from the film watching, I'm not coming down on you. Making movies ain't easy, man. I totally get it. I'm being blunt to make a point, right? That doesn't mean there's everything that's Halloween-y that I don't like. But by and large, I thought there were too many missed opportunities. That's what it was. Too many missed opportunities that didn't have to be missed. So really good slasher movie, but as a Halloween movie, it largely fails. So I expect that, we're going to get more of that, so it's just okay, all right, I'm just going to settle in and watch it and take it for what it is, but you know what? Everybody has different levels of expectations, right? And, but yeah, I think I don't know. I'm curious to see it. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. As long as I really don't want them to open up the door to the mythology of Michael Myers. You must keep Michael an enigma and mysterious, and the mystique, everything about him must be kept intact. Yeah. So, Neil Rook says, thank you for, blah, blah, blah. Try that again. Thank you for the super chat, my man. Hello again, mate. I'd love to be a part of It's Me, Billy. Would you accept an audition video over Facebook? Congrats on 20,000. Well, we're hiring professionals, Neil, and we're sort of keeping it within the sort of the Toronto casting scene, because they're local, so it's always easier to have people there on a moment's notice. It's easier to have people there on a moment's notice in terms of reshoots and things like that. Of course, that cuts down on cost. So it's that's sort of it's not personal, of course, but that's sort of where we're kind of leaning towards is having people with already a certain level of experience within the industry, and of course who is local. Toronto being the third largest film and TV production center in North America, right up there with Vancouver. We have access to a plethora of actors who would probably, are just chomping at the bit to maybe be a part of this. Not that you wouldn't be chomping at the bit, and I'm not here to say that you're not an actor or that you don't have experience. I'm not at all. But certainly there's certain avenues that we are looking at, not necessarily an open casting call. And also too is that it's a very small cast. So it's not a massive, ensemble with 50 people. So there's very specifics that we're searching for, and then once those are locked down, it's done. But maybe in the future, you never know, man. You never know. I mean, if It's Me, Billy is successful, and of course that level of success is determined by the response to the movie, by the views it gets. Bruce and I have an idea for sequel, maybe. I don't want to say too much. But certainly, you never know. You never know what the future holds. Holly Klein, you are starting to rub off on me. As I was watching the Oscars, the Hubby Award for with the Hubby, the award for cinematography pops up. I began to explain the cinematography was all about mood and atmosphere. Well, that's a big part of it. There's a lot more than that, of course, but I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. The cinematography is one of the most important, if not the most important element, and what truly defines a major motion picture. Because every other department, every other job Obviously, there have been jobs that have been created in the era of talkies, of course, and movies. But generally speaking, the major jobs, whether it's writing, directing, producing, music, set design, production design, casting, acting, all came from the theater. It all came from the theater. The only major job that did not exist in the world of the theater back, 200-300 and then some years ago was cinematography, was the world of, cameras and shooting pictures, motion pictures, right? 24 pictures in a single second, 24 frames a second in film. And in video, it's 29. Of course, now we have 60 frames a second and even above that. But yeah, certainly the cinematography is one of the most crucial and imperative roles to creating that mood and atmosphere, that sense of authenticity, that sense of there's somebody in here, I think his name is maybe he's not in here today. He was on the show last night. He had a screen name of verisimilitude. That's a great word. That essentially means something that feels real. It's the verisimilitude of a scene. I buy that this is actually a restaurant. I buy that the tiny nuances and and details and idiosyncrasies of the set design, like everything feels real. The verisimilitude, I totally buy it. Like I totally buy this is a real restaurant. This is on a real street in a real city with real patrons, and like everything feels real. And the cinematography is a gigantic part of that, depending on the angles you choose and the lenses you choose, and and your close working relationship with the director and the camera operator and the focus puller. And I mean, it is arguably, in the world of motion pictures, movies, arguably your most important award, really, at the end of the day. Because it is the one award that is absolutely movies. And that's pretty fucking cool. Let me see here. Let me scroll back. Okay. The Artisan says, congrats, Dave. Y'all horror fans, check out the 3-minute script teaser to my contemporary Death on my channel. It's a new kind of / original horror that is being touted as very scary. Who is touting it? Who is touting it, The Artisan? Are people touting it? Go to his channel and check it out, folks. Why the hell not? Let me see here. Lauren Downing, talking to Holly Klein. See, you guys are chatting. That's what I like. Matthew Mills says, have you got plans for your teaser trailer? You mean for the Indiegogo campaign? I assume you're talking to me about It's Me, Billy. Yes. Now, keep in mind that our teaser trailer for It's Me, Billy is not going to be anything. And when I say it's not going to, like in terms of what Cecil Laird was doing with the horror show, over at the horror show YouTube channel for Dylan's New Nightmare, our teaser trailer is not going to be that involved. Ours is really sort of very much teaser-like. Not that his wasn't a teaser, but ours takes it even a step further into the teaser territory. We want to give a sense of the feeling and vibe of what we're going for. So not going to be much to it, but definitely, yes, we have the ideas of what we want to do. Keep it simple. And hopefully we'll have that done, of course, for our campaign launching in April as well. So, just to kind of whet your appetite. That's what it's about. And of course, once the campaign is launched, and even before that, Bruce is going to come on the channel. We're going to talk It's Me, Billy. We're going to take your questions, all that kind of stuff. But we're also probably going to do at some point to also help the campaign. I asked Bruce if he wanted to do sort of an It's Me, Billy-a-thon. So look for in the very near future at some point, probably after the Indiegogo campaign is launched. So in April or May, we're going to do, maybe even June, and maybe even after that as well. We're going to launch. We're probably going to do maybe at least one It's Me, Billy-a-thon, where I'm going to have him come over to my place, and we're going to go, come live. and we're going to just go all night, like do like a 8-9 hour stream where we take nothing but super chat questions. And because it's to raise money for It's Me, Billy. Now, I don't expect that everybody will be on at 4 o'clock in the morning, but maybe we start at like, noon or something, right? And we go to like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, kind of have it that way, Eastern Standard Time, of course. And then we try to raise as much money as possible to put towards the production budget, right? So we're thinking about doing that kind of thing as well. So that might be kind of fun. Let me see. Aaron Zukowski says, if Nick Castle had played Michael Myers in Halloween 2, and 4, would it improve those films? Not necessarily. I think Halloween 2 from 1981 would have been interesting. That might have been, maybe. I mean, that might have been cool to see Nick Castle return for Halloween 2 to play Michael Myers. Halloween 4 is hard to say because Halloween 4, obviously, Michael is he's got the, that other mask on. So if he still has the Halloween 4 mask on, that sort of kind of counteracts what you're trying to do by bringing Nick Castle back on board. If you had the original mask in Halloween 4, I mean, hell, if you had the original mask in Halloween 4, you throw it on George P. Wilbur. Now, I don't know how that original Shatner mask would have fallen on his face. For many, many, many years, I mean, really, it wasn't until the internet came around. People thought that and maybe, I don't know, maybe this, I think it was always out there, but it wasn't known on a mass sort of scale like it is now. And there's still even people out there, you still find little pockets of people that don't know this, but most of you guys here know this, obviously. The mask that was used in the original Halloween is the exact same mask used in Halloween 2. I don't mean the same kind of mask, the same type of mask. I mean the same mask. It's like me handing you this water bottle, you using it for a movie, you holding on to it, you putting it in a shoebox under your bed, which is what Deborah Hill did, and then you take it out 2 years later to use it again. It's the same mask. The reason why it looks a bit different, like, Nick Castle-ish here and then Dick Warlock here, the reason why it looks different is because of their head shapes. Dick Warlock has a rounder face and Nick Castle has more of a longer face. So that's why it looks a bit different. But there are certain shots on Dick Warlock in Halloween 2 where you're like, that I can totally see it now, just because of the lighting. So I don't know how. They wouldn't have had that mask anyway, because I think it was kind of done by that point. But if they had the same kind of mask, I don't know how that would have fallen on George P. Wilbur's face. George P. Wilbur I think has a bit of a rounder face. So who knows? I'm not sure. But definitely that mask alone would have even improved George P. Wilbur as Michael Myers. So it's hard to say. I think it's always in a film's best interest to have the same person back playing the villain. Even if you're David Prowse in Darth Vader's costume, right? I mean, arguably, we think of James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, and we often forget that the former British bodybuilder, who was also in A Clockwork Orange, David Prowse, who was 6'7" in his heyday. You put boots on him. I mean, Vader was probably 6'8", maybe pushing 6'9", depending on if those things had heels. He was a gigantic man. And rightly so. And they used him for all 3 films, the original trilogy. Of course, people forget about David Prowse because he was just the guy in the costume, but he was the physicality of Vader. He was the physicality, not the voice, but yeah, I think anytime that you can keep that level of consistency there, if you can do it, I don't think it's a negative. It may not, I mean, the differences at the end of the day might be marginal, but I don't think it's really ever a negative, if that makes sense. Jonathan Ball says, at Dave McRae, did you know, I love these did you know? Did you know the original TV airing of Black Christmas was pulled due to the Ted Bundy murders at the sorority house? Yes, I do. Yes. And it's funny for you Americans that may not know this. Obviously, Black Christmas, the original from 1974, is a Canadian movie shot here in Toronto, and it was released here in Canada under the title Black Christmas, but in the US on its initial release, because I believe it was released in Canada here, funny enough, I think in the summer or something. And then it was released in the US, if I'm not mistaken, at Christmas time. But it was under the title Silent Night, Deadly Night. Or sorry, excuse me, Silent Night, Evil Night, I think. Deadly Night's the actual, yeah. Silent Night, Evil Night, I think. It was released under that title because the studio didn't want people thinking it was what they call blaxploitation films. Blaxploitation. I think that's how they said it. It's a play on black films, people with black actors and actresses and that black sort of culture. And they didn't want them to think it was a blaxploitation film. Because there were a lot of them back then. Like even Eddie Murphy's Dolomite Is My Name, right? Is a spoof. Well, it's not actually a spoof. It's actually technically a biopic, but it's playing on that, right? Those type of blaxploitation films, right? And they didn't want people thinking that's what it was. Black Christmas. Crazy, but true. So that's what it was released under. Silent Night, Evil Night. Now, in subsequent re-releases of the film, and even if you were to go into a store or order it in the States now, you can order it under its official and original title, Black Christmas. But that's kind of funny, though. Yes, I did know that. Pretty crazy stuff, man. Pretty crazy stuff. David Thorson says, David Prost was in a Hammer Frankenstein movie as well. David Prost. Who's David Prost? David Prost. Can't remember who David Prost is now for some reason. Big G sends in a super chat. Congratulations, Dave. Well deserved. Great channel. Thank you very much, Big G. I really appreciate it. Let me see. Greg Howard says, I started watching your videos and you give great insight on the movies. In your opinion, them getting rid of the other Halloween movies 2 to 8 and the Halloweens by Rob Zombie a good move? I think at the end of the day, yes. I think you never want to find yourself in that position because, finding yourself in that position really at the end of the day is nothing more than incompetence. Listen, I know Mustafa Akkad is considered the grandfather or the godfather, of Halloween. And yes, without him, there would have been, I can't say without him, there wouldn't have been a Halloween movie, but certainly he was the financier. He was the one that came in there with $300,000. He was the one that came in with an extra $25,000 so they could get Donald Pleasance. So for all intents and purposes, you could say if it wasn't for Mustafa Akkad, there would be no Halloween. But if you know your Halloween history, you also know that there's a lot of, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not all sunshine and rainbows between John Carpenter and Irwin Yablans. It's not all sunshine and rainbows between the Yablans family and certainly, Irwin and Halloween, and after what happened with Halloween 2 and the buyout and this is stuff that is if you know your Halloween shit, you know that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And Mustafa Akkad, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows with him either. Obviously, his main priority was making money. And, he famously said, I don't care if Michael, he'll always survive Halloween 25, 22, Michael will always come back. It's like, he didn't, I'm not saying he was a stupid man. He wasn't a stupid man at all. He was a very intelligent man, and it was incredibly sad what happened to him and his daughter in 2005, same year that Deborah Hill died. So we lost, 2 Halloween alum in the same year, 2 integral Halloween alum in the same year. I think it was the same year, 2005, I believe. Awful. But I just think that Mustafa Akkad started to sort of, it just wasn't going in the right direction. It just really wasn't. It wasn't. It was losing. And naturally that happens when you make sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel. You've heard me say that 1,000 times. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. But when you read up on it and you dive into it and you dive into the parts that are not all sunshine and rainbows, and you start to realize there was a lot of dumb decisions that were made, a lot of incompetence going around. And, unfortunately, when you get to a certain point, I know that people like to say, oh, Halloween's like a choose your own adventure. Yeah, but it wasn't designed that way. Do you want to know why it's a choose your own adventure? Because they fucked up. It wasn't designed that way. It wasn't like, hey, here's an idea. No, it was like, oops, oops, oh, oops, oh, oops, oh, oops. You know what I mean? They kept oopsing, right? So then, by default, it just was, now it's like this choose your own adventure thing, but it wasn't intended, and it felt messy and incomplete and lame and cheesy and chintzy. And it was garbage. It was garbage, and I didn't, I don't like things feeling messy and what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? So your question, of course, is, was it the right move? Well, they had two options. Really, at the end of the day, they had two options. I mean, three technically. You either remake it again, right? You remake it. Or you do a sequel. And then the question is, well, where do we do the sequel to? Well, we're not going to do a sequel to Rob Zombie's films because they're not well received. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 did take a nosedive from the previous film in terms of box office. Okay. Well, what movie are we going to do a sequel to? Well, we're not going to do a sequel to Resurrection. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Right? We're not going to do a sequel to H2O because that is Resurrection. We're not going to do a sequel to 6 because, So, they're trying to find their endpoints, right? So the logical place was either Halloween 1 or Halloween 2. And by pretending Halloween 2 didn't exist, which was a movie Carpenter didn't like anyway, didn't want to write anyway, you also avoid the inevitable question of, well, how the fuck did he survive the fire? How the fuck did he survive being shot in the eyes? When you go back to the original intent of the character, which was he was a human being with this weird supernatural edge. You were never supposed to know how he was able to do this and do this, get from here to there, appear to dematerialize right in front of your eyes. It's like, what the fuck? That makes it more scary. John Carpenter famously said, I had Nick Castle walk like a man and not a monster to make him scary. It needs to feel like he is a person, but yet how is he? That's what makes it's uncomfortable that way. If he was just a monster, it'd be like, well, I get it. It's almost ironically less scary. Because you know what to expect. So I think it was the logical choice. I think and because of the era we're in the terms of nostalgia, and everything coming back and, what's old is new again and pulling on the heartstrings and you're like, oh, I remember. Do you remember? I remember, and you get in there and, so yeah, it made sense. The only thing and there's really nothing you could do about it, but the only thing that I totally can see what people are saying is, and again, who's to say that, this isn't the case? I mean, everybody suffers. When I say everybody, I mean those that do, and I say unfortunately do, suffer from PTSD, whatever the root cause is, are going to handle things differently. We all have different psychological makeups. We all have, different nature versus nurture, upbringings. How we handle the psychological ramifications and residual effects of whatever traumatic event we've been through. How I handle something might be very different than how you handle something, right? But I do agree that it's sometimes hard for people to look at Laurie in Halloween 2018 and remember that whole Halloween 2 from 1981, that massacre that happened in 1981 at the hospital never happened. All those people that died never died. All those people that Myers murdered in Halloween 2 from 1981 never happened. That chase, through the hospital and her banging on the window, help me, help me. Why won't he die? Never happened. Shooting him in the eyes, never happened. The only thing that happened was 1978, the original film. Excuse me. That's it. Some people have said, would Laurie be that crazy after just that? Well, I don't know. I mean, she saw her 3 friends murdered. She was chased by a guy across the street and attacked in a closet. But I think some people feel that extra that happened in Halloween 2 just helps to make a case for the craziness that she is. And I'd be like, yeah, but then if you include it, you gotta, what about the brother-sister thing? What about the fact that Michael burned at the end? What about the fact he was shot? You have to justify all that. So they thought, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's do an alternate reality Halloween 2. And that's what they did. I get it. I understand it, man. I do. There's only so much you can do when you fuck up on epic proportions. When you fuck up epically like they did in the Halloween franchise. And there's no, I don't care what anybody says, oh, it's like Choose Your Own Adventure. No, that's an excuse. It's an excuse. I mean, it might be like that now. Yes. I mean, by default, you can do that. But that is a result of incompetence. You know what I mean? Anyway, great question, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Super chat comes in from Sean McBride. Thank you, Sean. He says, hi, Dave. You're fucking awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. So are you, Sean. Congrats on 20,000. Are you happy to hear that there's apparently more blue low-key lighting and stalking scenes in Halloween Kills? Because that's what I thought 2018 lacked. So they listened. No, I'm just kidding. I have no evidence of that. Yes. I mean, look, again, I don't put too much stock into test screenings, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean much. Now, obviously, it's always good when you hear positive things coming from a test screening. You don't want to hear bad things, but as I said last week, as I've said before, I'll reiterate it here because it's important. There are many examples of positive test screenings to movies that end up being garbage. And there's many examples of negative test screenings to movies that end up being really good. So, it's hard. A test screening is a small sample size of a very small group of people. Now, again, obviously, I think we'd all like to hear good things. Well, that's good, right? But at the end of the day, it's still in its infancy. It's still unfinished. Things can change. Who knows, right? It's hard to get any sort of context and nuance within bullet point form, reviews. It's got more blue low-key lighting. Okay, well, that in and of itself doesn't mean that's good. How is it used? How is it executed? How much of it? Is it too much? Is it drenched in blue? Is it too blue? Is it too? I mean, does it seem gimmicky, shticky, weird? There's so, and I don't mean just with that. I mean with everything, right? There's more stalking scenes. Okay, how is it executed? Right? What does it look like? What's the music like? What is it, what's going on? Like, there's so many variables that can make or break something. So it's good when you hear those things, but you should always take them with a grain of salt. Go, okay, all right, interesting, and file it in the back of your head. And then just let the chips fall where they may. Because if you get too emotionally attached to a test screening, man, don't put all your eggs into one basket, folks. That's all I can say there. But if it is true and there is more blue low-key lighting in Halloween Kills, that's good because, I think there should be. It was missing from the 2018 film. And to reiterate what I've said many times, again, I don't think the movie should be drenched in a blue. You don't color grade the movie in blue. That's not what I mean. I just mean that there should be when you're outside, when you're in dark rooms at night, there should be this cold sort of, damp bluish kind of feel to it. When I say blue, I don't mean like royal blue, like my hat. I'm talking about that whitish blue, which is either moonlight maybe coming in from a window, or that sort of overall, hey, it's 11 o'clock at night, we're outside, whitish bluey kind of dark, cold, ambient kind of light feel to it, right? Sometimes in modern day films it's overdone and you can tell, it's like, where's that light source coming from? They're in the woods. It's the moon. Yeah, I don't think so. So you don't want to go too far. But like Halloween 4, I mean, it's not, they did that very well. Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers at nighttime, you had that. And the reason why it's important to me, and again, it's not mutually exclusive to Halloween. It was used before Halloween. It's been used 1,000 times after. But I've always felt personally that it's an integral sort of part of Michael's character, right? He has that white, blank, pale, emotionless face. He is the boogeyman. It's Halloween. It's supposed to be the fall, right? So creating that cool ambient vibe, through some of that, bluish low-key lighting from a window that comes in, or maybe they're outside, on the street, and it's got that cool, crisp kind of feel to it. That's why because it's part of the season. It's part of his character and the boogeyman and the coldness and the darkness and it's all part of that. I just don't think there should be. I mean, if you're inside a home with a light on, well, then tungsten the shit out of the thing. Make it orangey and warm and whatever. I'm okay with that. But when there's no lighting and the lights are supposed to be out or you're outside, I really think that's important. But that doesn't mean that I think the whole movie should be drenched in some sort of blue filter. It doesn't mean that. But so when I hear that, okay, cool. All right. But I read it. The blue low-key lighting is back. Okay. Well, I file that in the back of my head because that sentence in and of itself doesn't mean much, right? It's all in the execution. So, but yeah, that's how I feel about it. So fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed. Hopefully they don't go too far with it. Super chat comes in from Joshy Russell. Thank you, Joshy. He says, hey, Dave, can you do a very short improv of Dave McRae finally having a breakdown after being asked the same Halloween question for 1,000th time? Okay, so here's John. John says, Dave, are you excited about the fact that Halloween Kills is going to utilize some more blue low-key light? Fuck. Holy crap! How many times do I have to answer this question? Yes! Yes! I'm excited about it. All right? Jesus. Listen. Okay, look. Here's how you do test screenings are not important. Okay? You take it with a grain of salt. I'm excited about the low-key lighting, but at the end of the day, it's all in the execution, man. Jesus. Can't stand this fucking thing. How many times do people have to ask me about this? How many? And by the way, to the previous guy who asked the question, who was it? It was Sean, right? Yeah, Sean. I'm okay with people asking. Now, if I get asked the same question multiple times in one show or one stream, then sometimes I'll say, go back and watch, because I already talked about that. But, some people don't watch everything, right? I don't mind if it doesn't take me too long. The Manhammer AR-15 says, Sir Dave, the man, the myth, the legend. Oh, well, thank you. How would you have felt instead of the Shatner mask? They used a clown mask from the beginning of the whole original seven. Well, I think if that was what they used, I don't think we'd be any the wiser. And I think because you don't have anything to compare it to. But I think the blank pale face is objectively, actually, not subjectively, objectively, actually more in line with the overall themes that they were trying to create. I mean, Carpenter wrote, blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. He was inspired by seeing a young boy. I believe it was when Carpenter was in university, and he went to I guess they went to like a psychiatric ward or something. I'm sure a lot of you know this, but he remembers seeing a young boy there who had a blank, pale, emotionless face and blah, blah. Like a lot of that is inspired from the psychology and makeup of the psyche of somebody who is a cold killer. There is no emotion. There's no remorse. There's no conscience, no reason, even in the most rudimentary sense of life or death, good or evil, right or wrong. That is really important. People don't realize, I mean, some people do, but there's a lot of people that don't realize how important that what he says there actually is. So the blank face is the visual representation of that. And I think it is incredibly important. And I think the clown mask, although you could say, well, he has the clown mask now, the Emmett Kelly clown mask, because he had a clown mask, when he was a boy. So he's regressing, right? And he's sort of, it's familiar to him. It's not the same clown mask, but he recognizes that it's a clown mask. So he picks it up. I mean, sure, okay. But I think it's stronger with the pale face because it also shows the evolution of the psychology of his character. So he's he's still, there are still rudimentary thoughts in his mind, but he's the boogeyman. He's now the boogeyman, so he's not the child clown. He's the blank face. It's all gone. It's all gone, so it's integral to his character, in my opinion. And I think you could actually make arguments objectively for that because for the things that I talked about here. So great question, though. Great question. Let me see here. People laughing. Super chat comes in from Vanderhoff. 66FU says, Dave, thank you, buddy. Says, Dave, how do you think it would have went if after Halloween 3 they kept going in the anthology series for the Halloween holiday with mood and atmosphere? I don't know, man. That's a good question. Obviously, Halloween 3 did not do very well at the box office. It was a total disaster. You're fired. It was a disaster, okay? It was a disaster. It was a disaster. And... but not because it was a bad movie. I don't think Halloween 3 is a bad movie, but I don't think it's as... It's since gained a cult following, and there are a lot of people that really love it and think it's amazing. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's because there's too much untapped potential. Their ideas were too big for the budget they were playing with. Their ideas were too big for the sandbox they were building and shoveling in. But I think you could even remake that movie now with a bigger budget and really make it amazing. But anyway, I don't know. I probably not very well. The word anthology, or the idea of doing an anthology series, wasn't really in the pop culture consciousness in 1982. It's one of the reasons why that movie failed. But it might even be I don't know. I mean, it's a catch-22. You can't keep going on with Michael. I mean, yeah, you can. But just as long as you're prepared that you're going to find yourself right back where you were. Eventually, if they make Halloween sequels with Michael Myers after Halloween Ends in the same timeline, eventually those movies will become dog shit. Dog shit. They know it. I know it. You know it. That's not the question. The question is, do we know it? Yeah, we all know it. Blumhouse knows it. I know it. You know it. The question is, do we care? Because it's about money. So are you going to go see Halloween Retribution, Halloween Reborn, Halloween Redemption, in 2028, and James Jude Courtney's 86? I mean, we wouldn't be that old, but I think you get my point. I think they should explore the anthology route, but I understand that Michael is the brand. It's, the problem here is also brand identity. But I think there's more of a chance of that being successful today because the word anthology is in the pop culture. People know what it is. We understand what it is. We understand what a spinoff is and, all that kind of stuff. Whereas back in the 80s, it just, unless you were reading about it in Fangoria magazine, you had no idea what the fuck was going on. You had no idea. I mean, there were people that literally went to see Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and were shocked that it had nothing to do with Michael Myers. In today's day and age, that would never happen because of the internet, because you know everything. Everything. In the early 80s, yeah, there were people who were like, what the fuck? Threw them off, I mean, hardcore horror Halloween fans would have known because they were reading Fangoria and that kind of stuff, but the average person wouldn't have known. So, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know. Probably not. Probability says probably. I mean, because Halloween 3 was a box office and critical failure at the time, if they had made another one in the same series, I just don't, why? I mean, what would have been different about that one as opposed to this one? I don't know. I think the probability was low that it would have changed anything. Had Halloween 3 Season of the Witch been really successful and people really enjoyed it, but for some strange reason they went back to Halloween 4. They went with Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers, instead of carrying on. Then I might be like, yeah, they should have just carried on with this anthology. That would have been cool because there's evidence that people were kind of, the demand was there. There's never been a demand for it. So pretty interesting stuff. Thank you for the super chat. Frank Riker. Frank sends in a very generous super chat. Thank you very much, Frank. Frank the Tank, one of my great moderators here and big supporter of the channel. Frank says, Dave, congrats. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. I have the ultimate ending to Halloween Ends. Oh, here we go. I love Frank's sense of humor. After Michael dies and people are staring at his body, a group of cloaked figures surround Michael and take him away. Halloween ends, but Thorn beginning. Can you imagine Can you imagine that? Can you, oh man. Can you imagine the end of Halloween ends? He's lying there. Maybe he's like burned, disheveled. It's like, oh my God. And all of a sudden you hear, oh, 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 and these cloak figures start to like, you know, move around him and things like that. It's like, what is going on? And then you see Emperor Palpatine. I am here to... What the fuck is going on? That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy, Frank. Crazy bad. Let's see here. Colin Altman says, what do you think your budget would be for your full-length movie that's been in development for, the one from college? Yeah, Port Robinson. Dude, I don't know. But I mean, it's a feature-length film. There's visual effects that are required. You know, I mean, it's probably a multi-million-dollar picture. I mean, it's probably like, you know, I don't mean like $50 million, but it's probably something that, yeah, you know, 4 or 5, you know, probably $5 million maybe a bit less, you know, depending on who you cast in it and things like that. But it's been a passion project of mine. I think it's a really cool idea, really cool story, something we haven't seen before in this way, utilizing the college age group. And I think it's something that would be very cool, but it's intense because it's very cerebral in a lot of ways. So it's not just like a horror movie, you know. It's got horror thriller elements to it, but it's got an intellectual side as well. So it's tough, man. Yeah, probably something like that though, dude. Probably something like that. So you never know. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. You never know, man. You never know. Super chat comes in from Mike Cornelius. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate your support. Says, congrats on 20K, Dave. Been watching and subscribed since before 7K. Cool. Imagine if back in Halloween 5 and, back in the H5 and Resurrection Days, if they brought Michael to space like Jason X, Michael driving the Millennium Falcon, my God, man, can you imagine? I mean, you know, there comes a point in a series, and Halloween 5 was that point for Halloween, where it's like, what the fuck? And then Halloween 6 just perpetuated that further with the Thorn cult and this kind of stuff and that kind of stuff. And again, you've heard me say, I understand that the producer's cut is better than the theatrical cut. And I agree. The producer's cut is better than the theatrical cut. I agree. But I don't think it makes the movie better because it's still the same story. It's adding context to things that we didn't get before. There's some scenes you're like, okay. Now, you know what I mean? Oh, I think we're still here. It helps to fill things out, which is really good. But I mean, it's not like it's a completely different picture. It's still the Thorn cult. It's still the Man in Black. It's still, and then Michael gets naked and gets into Dr. Wynn's outfit and he walks off down the hall he's the man. What the fuck is this? What the hell is, anyway. And I think that's the ending of the producer. Yeah. No, it is. It's the ending of the producer's cut. Yeah, dude, you know, that'd be crazy, man. That'd be crazy. But then surprising to some, I don't know. Not to me. Not to me, guys. Not to me. All right, let me see here. The Boogeyman says, Dave, have you heard there is another returning character in Kills that hasn't been announced yet? Yes, I have. I was thinking about doing a standalone video on that, although I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure when I'll get to it. Maybe I'll have some time tomorrow. But yes, I have heard about that. And yeah, I'm not sure. I appreciate the question. I have heard about it. I'm going to sort of I'm going to plead the fifth. I think that's how you say it. That's right. You keep quiet on this because I might do a standalone video on that. If I don't, then I'll be able to talk about it. But I'm thinking about doing that. Because it's interesting. And I think people I see some people overreaching to characters they think are going to be in it or who it could be. And I just think, I kind of want to temper people's expectations because I think there's a lot of variables people haven't thought about yet with it. So, But yes, I do. I have heard about that. It was in the bullet points of the test screenings. All right. A couple super chats came in here. Let me see. Sean McBride says, Dave, have you seen Exorcist 3? If so, what are your thoughts? I have a love-hate relationship with it. P.S. Sorry if it's another common question. No, Sean, don't worry, man. Don't worry about that stuff. Yes, I have seen The Exorcist 3. But not in a long time. That's the one with George C. Scott, I believe. Not in a long time. And I liked it. But I'd have to watch it again to be able to brush up on my thoughts and really sort of give sort of my overall kind of because I haven't seen it in a long time, probably since the late 90s. So it's been a while since I've seen it, I have to admit. Super chat from Lost Boys Boyus. Thank you very much, buddy. Says, what will you do if Halloween Kills is super identical to Halloween 2, 2009? Because I get the feeling Halloween on acid is a weird thing. Well, I think what people mean by Halloween on acid is the intensity of the violence. I think that's what they mean. Whereas in Halloween 2018, you had most of the violence was off screen. They were trying to sort of please everybody. They knew they needed to be more gratuitous. They knew they needed to show, a bit of blood and a bit of gore because, well, that's what, young audiences want today. But they wanted to please, guys like me, who appreciate more of the theater of the mind aspect of the original Halloween. And sort of, we'll show blood, guts, and gore, but they will be off-screen kills. So you'll just see the residual effect, like you'll see the end result of it, which I actually quite liked. And you've heard me talk about that. I actually quite liked that approach because I can only imagine, and listen, if there's any first responders watching, my hat goes off to you. I mean, the shit you, and the stuff you, let me say stuff, the stuff you guys have to deal with. If you are a police officer, a paramedic, a firefighter, even a doctor, I mean, bless you, seriously. I can't even imagine rolling up on an accident scene and, a lot of these guys and gals suffer from PTSD from that. I mean, I know a couple of paramedics who I went to college with who are like, so when I was watching that movie, I'm thinking about this like this is actually happening. That the Halloween 2018 film I'm talking about. And although I'm a theater of the mind guy, you know that. Now that doesn't mean I can't watch a slasher movie and enjoy it, but Halloween has that identity. And when you're making a sequel to the original Halloween, I suspect part of that identity to be carried over because that was part of the fundamental identity of the movie. Erwin Yablans wanted to make a theater of the mind horror film. It was part of the identity of the movie. That doesn't mean you don't evolve and kind of, but that was part of it. So I expected to see that level of continuity carried over. And they tried to do that. They tried to please people because they showed you, bodies like, and all that stuff, but you didn't actually see Michael killing them per se. You just saw the end result. And I gotta admit, I actually kind of liked it. It was because it was creepy. I mean, imagine being a police officer. And this is how I sort of felt about it in my own mind. Imagine being a police officer, walking like Hawkins, walking into that scene, seeing Dave with his neck like almost like a 360, or not a 360, but a 180, like this. He's pinned to the wall. It's like, what the fuck are we dealing with? What the fuck are we dealing with here? That is the end result. That is the end result. I always sort of, the analogy I use, and this is a bit, I know it's touchy, but it's true. Those poor people that were jumping from the World Trade Center on 9/11. I mean, just awful, right? I think we can agree. I mean, that's because if you're jumping from the 80th or 90th floor, you're not going to survive. It's not like those people thought, well, maybe. No, you knew you were jumping to your death. It's not like, jumping from the 5th story or something where you're like, oh, maybe, the sixth story even, maybe, right? If I hit and roll or maybe. The 80th floor, it ain't happening. It doesn't matter how much you prepare for impact or it ain't happening. Awful. And I remember the firefighter, one of the first responders saying, and you guys probably remember this too, how bad is it up there that the better option is to jump? How bad is it up there that the better option than to sit and wait? I mean, they had no idea that the tower was going to crumble, but to sit and wait, no, I'm going to leap to my death. And it's sort of like kind of how I feel. I mean, it's an awkward comparison because it's not identical, but it's the same sort of feeling I have. It's like, whoa, how bad? Like, how bad is it that that's the end result of what we're dealing with here? Who are we dealing with here? What is this? I kind of like that approach in the 2018 film because I understood that you had to show a little, I get it. I think what people mean with Halloween on acid is not necessarily weird things that don't make sense or just kind of like they're throwing everything in but the kitchen sink. I don't think that's what they mean. I think they mean the intensity and the pacing of the movie. So the intensity has been stepped up. I think you are going to see violence on screen. You are going to see kills on screen happen. So instead of just seeing the end result, you're actually going to see a character like Dave get his head spun around and blood spurted. I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see it. And I'm not saying that that's what I think they should do, but I think that's what you're going to see. And I think that's what they mean by Halloween on acid. But I could be wrong. Mark Down sends in a super chat and says, how would you make Leatherface relevant again? I don't know, man. It's a good question. I think a lot of these properties are not relevant to the really at the end of the day, you're not I know they're trying to appeal to a younger generation, but really at the end of the day, they don't care about it. I'm not saying nobody. When I say nobody, I mean generally, right? Generally. It doesn't mean if you're 22 and you're a big, Leatherface fan, but what about me? I'm saying generally speaking, people 17 don't give a fuck about Leatherface or Halloween. Generally. Okay? It's not part of they didn't grow up with it. Right? They're into different things. So really, you got to make a movie that appeals to the generation it appeals to. And then it's up to us who have kids who are like 15, 16. It's up to parents to get them involved. I think a lot of the times when you're rebooting something like Texas, make it small. Go back to the roots of what it was, a low budget, independent horror film that was gritty and uncomfortable. And I want to feel the sweat on these people's faces. I want to feel the heat, from the Texas sun. I want to hear the fly that goes by. I want to oh man, you can feel it. You can really feel it, and it's just a low budget, I don't want to see a polished, pristine looking, clean, modern horror film. I don't want to see it. That doesn't mean the movie's going to be successful. I just think that go back to the DNA of what Texas is. And I don't even think Texas Chainsaw is really I don't think it's got longevity. I think they want it to have longevity. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has always been a failure as a series. Always. Always. Listen, they had the original in 1974. Okay, great. It was yes, it was a monumental film in the slasher genre. It was a bit exploitative, but okay, right? And then Texas 2 comes out in the 80s, years later, and it's like this comedy with Dennis Hopper. And then Texas 3 kind of goes back, but it never glommed on. It never caught on. Maybe because they waited too many years between sequels, and maybe because they fucked up with because the second film, although it's got some redeeming qualities, the second film it's got a weird feel to it, to me, a weird identity to it. Because the original, although it's very dated now, and it's a little cringy at times because of the editing and the acting, it never was, you can tell it was being serious. You could certainly tell they were taking themselves seriously. I just, and then of course you have, you know, the remake in 2003 or 4. I always get those two mixed up. Really good movie. But then you bring in The Beginning a couple of years later. Nobody gave a fuck about that. And then you bring in that remake in, I think it was 2013 or whatever, which was supposed to be a direct sequel to the original. Loved the opening of that. I thought that was cool because it was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But then they turned Leatherface into like this anti-hero who had this sister. Now I'm feeling empathy for her and Leatherface. He's a fucking serial murderer. I know he might be a few bricks shy of load and he might be a little, you know, not all there and it's not his fault, but he's still a murderer. He murders people and he takes their skin and sews their faces onto his face. I shouldn't be feeling, oh, poor guy. So I didn't like that angle. I liked the beginning of the movie where it was kind of like, oh, this kind of feels like, I thought they did a really good job on creating the verisimilitude of sort of, I totally believe this is like the ending of the first, or, you know, yeah, the ending of the first movie. But I didn't like where they went. And then they made another film after that, Leatherface, I think, whatever. I didn't bother seeing that one. I just think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, by and large, has just been really just plagued with problems from the very beginning. And I think if you're now going to do a sequel to the original film again, make it this is Texas Chainsaw. Go dark. This is Texas Chainsaw. Go small, gritty, dark, sweaty. You know? Couple $1 million. $3-4 million. Make it, do it. That's all you need, man. Make it intense, creepy, dark. Just, yeah, that's what I think they need to do. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I think that would be a good starting place anyway for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let me see, making sure I didn't... Big G sends in, how about a remake of Night of the Scarecrow? I haven't seen Night of the Scarecrow, to be honest with you, Big G, so I'm not sure if I would want to see a remake to that or not. I'll put that on the list. Let me see here. Ryan Andrew Allen says, Dave, the infancy of your voice acting career, how did you go about recording? Rent studio time, home studio... Jesus. I've been doing this professionally for almost 20 years. I've been full-time since 2006, so that's 14 years. When I first began many years ago, I was working a part-time job because originally when I left college, I was pursuing a career in on-camera acting, and I was in a few commercials, a few dramas, bit parts, things like that. And then I broke my teeth playing street hockey, and I know, a very Canadian thing. Anyway, so I had a big hole in my face, and I had to get my teeth fixed. This here is a fake tooth. And so that kind of put me on hiatus for a bit. This is the early 2000s. Put me on hiatus for a bit for on-camera acting, unless they were looking for a toothless goon in a hockey movie or something. So I delved really deep into the voiceover, and I never looked back. So... but through all that, I had a part-time job at Rogers Video here in Canada. And Rogers Video is not... It would be like the Canadian equivalent of Blockbuster. Now, we had Blockbuster up here too, but we also had our own big chain, which was Rogers Video. We had a couple of chains, but Rogers Video would have been like the Blockbuster of Canada, even though we also had Blockbuster as well, and sometimes literally across the street from each other. And I worked there. And I worked there for a couple years while I was pursuing that. And then my career as a voice actor began to take off in the early 2000s. And then I was able to quit that job and I created a home studio. I have a home studio here at home. This is where I do this show, but I also record all my voiceover work here as well. I have a walk-in closet over here. Let me show that to you. Walk-in closet over there, right here. You walk in there, you go this way, and it opens up a little bit, and that's where my microphone is, and I have a monitor in there where I read my scripts, and I have my preamps and everything. There's a lot of equipment I use for the show that I don't use for VO. So I don't use this mic for my VO career. I have an Audio-Technica 4050 in there in the booth, which is what I use for my voiceover stuff. But yeah, it was just one of those. Let me go back to my other camera here. It was just one of those things where let me just see here. What was the question? Something about rent again? Dun, 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 dun. Let me go back. Oh no, where is it? I should have. You were asking about. I don't think I missed it. Where is it here? Anyway, I think you were asking about home studios and whether I rented a studio. No, I have agents. I have an agent for trailers, promos, and commercials, and I have an animation agent as well. And so everything's booked through my agent. Now you can book me directly as well, but I'm often booked through my agents. And of course, I go down and I don't pay for the time. I get paid to do it, and it would be the studio or the production company or whoever is doing whatever it is I'm doing. So if I'm doing a movie trailer for It, for example, which I did do, or if I'm doing, a movie trailer for Lego Batman, which I did, or whatever. I mean, obviously I'm not going down to pay for that. Or if I'm doing something like a Coke commercial or a Mercedes-Benz commercial or a General Motors commercial, whatever. I would say about 65-70% of the voiceover work I do is for my home studio. And then the other 35-40% maybe is done, or the other 35% is done in studios in downtown Toronto. So I've never had to pay for the rental of a studio, but I do have to pay obviously for. Oh, there it is, Dave. The emphasis of your voiceover career. How did you go about recording? Rent a studio home? Yeah, it's my home studio, and I started small, of course, having to work your way up, buying certain equipment and things like that, and then as your career grows, your needs grow as a professional, and then you purchase accordingly. So yeah, that's sort of a nutshell anyway of what's been going on with me. Let me see here. Travis Lauder. Is it Lauderbaugh? Lauderbaugh? Man, I hope I'm saying that right, buddy. I keep getting your name wrong, I think. Dave, is the room you're in now in your house? Yes. Yeah, yes it is. Smiths Grove at Franklin. Talking to Franklin. See, you guys are talking to each other. That's what it's all about. Holly Klein says, do you ever get incentives besides being paid like freebies? Do I get incentives? Oh, I see. Do I get incentives like freebies? Not really. I don't think. It depends on what you mean by like freebies or incentives. I mean, I might get early access to just by doing a movie trailer, I'm able to kind of see a bit of because the trailer hasn't been released yet. So I'm able to see maybe the trailer before, anybody else does because I'm doing a voiceover to it. So, but that's part of my job. I mean, it's not really a freebie. I mean, anybody would be in there. I mean, that would happen to you too, right? So, I don't think so. I mean, it depends. I mean, when you attend the Voice Arts Awards, obviously you're treated well, especially if you're a nominee like I was. You're treated well and you're treated like a nominee, and you're pampered a little bit and things like that. But I mean, it's outside of that, it's not, I don't think so. But I'm a very low key guy too. I'm not very, I'm really all about the work. I'm really all about the work and the passion and the art and things like that. And if I get a freebie for something, great, but I couldn't care less if I get a freebie or whatever. I don't mind paying my own way for things. I mean, I'm a person too, right? So yeah, but I'd have to think. I mean, there might have been something down the road that maybe I was able to get, a hat or something. I don't know. I got to think. I haven't really thought about that. It couldn't have been something major or it would have been off the top of my head. You know what I mean? Good question though. Thanks, Holly. Let me see. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Hello there. Says, hey Dave, how do you feel about the sudden resurgence it seems in slashers with Michael having 2 more movies, a Scream movie in the works, and Elm Street going back to the Craven estate? Well, I don't think I don't think there really has been much of a resurgence in the slasher genre. I think there's been a resurgence in Halloween. But outside of that, still most of the horror movies being made today, most of your mainstream horror movies are still falling in the supernatural realm, whether it's the Conjuring films or Annabelle or The Nun or, Insidious or, what's that one that just came out? The Grudge or, The Invisible Man or, there's slasher elements to them, but they're not full on slasher movies. So I don't think there actually has been a resurgence in the slasher subgenre. I think there's been a resurgence for Halloween. Scream is still sort of up in the air. It's in supposed development. What they're going to do with that, I have no idea, because I just think it's way past its prime, way past its due date. They're going to have to evolve Scream again, and then it might even be a shell of what it originally was, but who knows? I'm open to being proven wrong. I'm always open to being proven wrong. And then the Elm Street rights going back to the Craven estate would have happened anyway. I mean, that's because it went back to the Craven estate because the rights, because they're entitled to that. After about 35 years, it went back to the Craven estate. That would have happened whether there was a resurgence or not. That would have happened if there hadn't been a slasher movie in 10 years. That still would have happened. So that in of itself, I think what you mean though is it's gone back to the Craven estate. So that means that means they can do whatever the fuck they want. They can hold on to those rights and do fuck all forever. They don't have to make anything. So going back to the Craven estate doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to happen. Now, it's also, this is a business, and also people are going to be tapping on their door and going, hey, you know, and if the shoe fits, and if the price is right, and they like sort of what the ideas are, and that it honors Wes and it doesn't take away from that, then yeah, I'm sure they will sell it again, or lend it out again, and maybe we'll see Freddy return. I think we will, but I don't know. I think the slasher genre to have a resurgence would have to be something outside of your Freddy, Jason, Michael, and Ghostface. Because they're having a resurgence, but is the slasher subgenre having a resurgence? I mean, for all intents and purposes, yes, because they're slasher movies, but they're the same slasher movies, like the same slasher characters. So that IP might be having a little bit of a resurgence, but the slasher subgenre as a whole, are there any new slashers coming out that are not B straight to VOD movies? Is there a new slasher movie that's coming out that is going to that like kind of thing? And again, there's Candyman too, as well. I don't know if Candyman really is. I mean, it kind of is a slasher, I guess, but I don't know. It's a good question. I totally see your point, but I think it's just a little premature at the moment to say that there's been a resurgence in the slasher genre. We'll see. I think they're on the cusp of that happening, but I still think it could go. I still think it could go either way. Chris Baber sends in a super chat and says, do you think they will use Pasadena locations for flashback shots? No, I don't. I think the entire thing was shot in North Carolina. The 2018 film was shot in South Carolina. I believe this one was shot in North Carolina. And I think they'll just shoot there. Because I think that at that time of year, shooting in the fall, in certain small parts of that town, I forget the name of the town where they shot. It was North Carolina, but it was... forget now. But anyway, wherever they were shooting, I think they just used that. And I think because the flashbacks are happening at night and you shoot in any neighborhood that looks like they have these old school wartime homes. I mean, there are neighborhoods around where I am that I could go and shoot and you'd be like, oh my God, he's in Haddonfield, because they're old school wartime homes on those streets with the big trees. And you know what I mean? You just go find a place like that and totally believe that it's the same place, maybe not the same street. Maybe you're a couple of streets over, right? You know what I mean? So I don't think they will, because I think it's unnecessary. It would be good fan service, but then in order for it to be fan service, there would have to be very specific streets, and you would have to be aware that it was that street. And I don't know if the average fan would pick up on that, especially at night. So thank you for the super chat, Chris. Really appreciate it, buddy. But I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no on that. Swifty the Gamer says, why don't they film Halloween sequels in the same aspect ratio as the first film so it will feel more like the original? Well, there's a variety of reasons why that could be. A lot of it may have to do with the DP, the comfortability of what the DP likes to shoot in, the visual aesthetic and style of the vision of the director and how to achieve that. There's a lot of reasons why that may not be the case. Trend is one as well. Also, screens and what screen size of, There's so many different types of reasons why. And I'm not as well versed on the reasons why to talk at length about it. But let me just say that it's not just I don't feel like doing that. There could be, there's more than likely actual logistical reasons of why as well. But I mean, to shoot true widescreen, I mean, would be really cool, for sure. And there are films that still do it. A lot of films do it, actually. Jason Wiley says, Dave, would you consider a commentary for My Bloody Valentine, seeing a Valentine's Day is happening soon? I'm not adverse to it. Maybe. I have no plans to do it, but yeah, I'd be down for it sometime. Gary Rangel says, Irwin Yablon should be executive producer on these upcoming films as well as 2018. He should have been credited with John Carpenter. Irwin Yablons is 85, I think now, 86, something like that. He's been retired from the motion picture industry for decades. He essentially, he always kind of dabbles and, he's probably aware of, what's going on a little bit, but he hasn't been a producer in the motion picture industry, I think, since the late 80s, something like that. That wouldn't have made a difference. That wouldn't have made a difference. It's so beyond. I don't think Irwin has the care anymore. He's been there, done that. It was Irwin Yablons that created Halloween. I know that Mustafa Akkad gets most of the credit because he's the financier, but it was Irwin Yablons' idea. It was Irwin Yablons' idea to hire John Carpenter. And it was Irwin Yablons' idea they call it Halloween. And it was Irwin Yablons' idea for that poster. Now, filmmaking is a collaborative effort. Certainly, you shouldn't be falling at the knees of Irwin, like without him, it wouldn't have, it's a collaborative effort. But Irwin Yablons sometimes gets forgotten because of the turmoil that happened. I mean, not just because of this, but there was a bit of a falling out, in the early 80s between him and Carpenter and Curtis even, and, but it was, he certainly, if it wasn't for Irwin Yablons, you wouldn't have a Halloween. It's not Mustafa. Now, you could say, well, if it wasn't Mustafa Akkad, we wouldn't have an. Well, that's true, but it wasn't Mustafa Akkad's idea. He was just the guy that was like, I don't really understand this, but okay. That's what he did, right? He okay, cool. He gave the money. That's awesome. But if it wasn't for Irwin coming up with the idea, he wanted to make a horror movie, low budget theater of the mind horror movie about babysitters, because Babysitters was really popular at that time. And then we're like, you know what? Let's set it on Halloween. And then, of course, Carpenter wrote the script, with Deborah Hill. And it's a collaborative effort, 100%. But Irwin being a producer, nah, that wouldn't have done anything. Carpenter was an executive producer on Halloween 2018. Did that do anything for all you people out there that didn't like the movie? No. He did the music. Did it change it? No. Not saying the music wasn't good. I'm just saying, it wouldn't have done anything. Wouldn't have done anything. No, not now. If this was 40 years ago, maybe. Now it's too big, too beyond that. It's too beyond him. He now lives in, I think he lives on a ranch. I think so. Anyway, he's retired. He's long retired. Been retired for years. He's too old now. He just wants to live a happy sort of, wants to live out his last days as just doing his stuff, doing his thing. But I get what you're saying though. Like I totally get why that, well, maybe, maybe. I totally get it. Totally understand. That's how I feel though. Let me see. The horror show is in the house. The horror show is in the house, ladies and gentlemen, saying congrats on 20K, Dave. Thank you very much, The Horror Show. If it's Cecil or maybe it's producer Dave or whoever the hell it is checking in, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. The Horror Show. If you guys haven't checked out The Horror Show, go check out The Horror Show YouTube channel. Awesome channel indeed. Obi-Wan Kenobi says, hey, Dave, instead of horror question, I want to ask you a Star Wars question. Do you think that Palpatine coming back in The Rise of Skywalker ruins Anakin's arc of the Chosen One? No, because it doesn't, because nowhere does it say that Rey's the chosen one. Rey's not the chosen one. Anakin is still the chosen one. He was the chosen one. He brought balance to the Force. And the most important, now maybe not forever, but the most important thing he did was he saved his son's life. He saved his son's life. Luke redeemed his father. His father saved his son's life by throwing the emperor away. And the emperor was gone for decades. And peace was restored to the galaxy for the first time in decades. And then something else rose up. And then we find out, what the fuck? I mean, Palpatine was dead. But here's something you have to remember. And again, I'm not a sweaty, hardcore Star Wars. But Dave, in comic book 5, section 3, in the Knights of the... I'm not one of those guys, okay? Yes. Does Palpatine coming back feel a little shoehorned in? Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course it does. Would it have been better if it was 2 movies so there was more nuance and room to breathe and really make that feel organic? Yes, we definitely needed that. Oh, yeah. 100%. Maybe make the movie 3 hours at the very least, and then use some of those minutes to build up more of a, or more than a, Palpatine's back. Holy shit. Wow. Maybe a little more than that. Yes. Oh, I agree. But Palpatine returning in and of itself, the probability of that happening, and look, Lucas probably would not have done it, but the idea of that being a possibility was not a J.J. Abrams creation. It was a George Lucas creation. He had a whole fucking scene in Revenge of the Sith, even though Palpatine didn't say it outright. It's heavily alluded to the fact that Palpatine knows how to cheat death because of Plagueis. That's a Lucas creation. JJ just was like, hey, that's cool. I'm going to run with that. Because at the beginning of The Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine says, the pathway to the dark side, many abilities, blah, 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 some consider to be unnatural. Heavily alluding to, okay. I'm not saying you have to like it. I'm not saying that you agree with it. If I was doing the sequel trilogy, I probably would not have brought him back either. I wouldn't have done it either. But because of the shit show that happened in the second act, I understand why, what JJ was up against, which is how I was able to enjoy that movie for what it was. I thought it was good. It's great. Should it and should it have been the end game of Star? Yes, of course, but it was never going to be because of the misstep of the second act. So I don't think it ruins that, because he still did what he was setting out to do. And if they had said that Rey's the chosen one, if it was alluded to, said, well, that maybe that might be a little awkward and weird, but it wasn't. This was about something Palpatine had not even thought of. It was more about Palpatine's mistake, and that mistake was Rey, because it was his own blood that just put the nail in the coffin. Because technically Palpatine wasn't back. He was on the verge of coming back. He was waiting in the outer regions on Exegol, and he had all, it's like, what the fuck? He wasn't back. He was just about to come back, and his own fucking granddaughter was like, I'm putting the nail in the coffin here. And she did it. It's kind of cool that it took a Palpatine to kill Palpatine. Or to put the nail in the coffin. He was already dead. And then he came back a little bit when he sucked the life forces out of Rey and Ren. But he wasn't back. It's not like he was running the galaxy per se, even though he was trying to kind of come back in small little increments. So I just don't think it does. I don't think it does. It wouldn't necessarily have been a creative choice I made, but I don't necessarily think it ruins the sacrifice that Anakin made. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing was saving his son's life. Because had he not saved his son's life, who knows what the fuck would have happened. So that's how I feel about it. But If I was one of those, yeah, excuse me, in section 5, then, well, maybe I'd have my ass handed to me. I have no idea. Oh my goodness. All right, we'll go for a little bit longer here. Celebrating 20,000 subs. Aaron Click says, happy 20K subscribers, Dave. Thank you very much, Aaron. Much appreciated. Super chat comes in from Frank Reiger. Says, Dave, would you like to see a movie on how Halloween was created like they did in Hitchcock and Psychos? Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of funky. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. I think that would be a really interesting, fun sort of movie. Why not? That'd be kind of fun. That's kind of cool. What a great question, Frank. I say why not? I say why not? Danita Brown says, love the Horror Show channel. Hello, Cecil. Yes, Cecil and the Horror Show, outstanding stuff. Jurassic Production says, hey, Dave McRae, filling my own no budget Halloween fan film. I have an LED lantern to help with night shoots. Make that bluish lighting. What else would you suggest for a no to low budget crew? Well, it's hard to say. Just nurture your script and your story when you're shooting at night. I don't know what you're shooting on. If it's low, no budget, sound is really important. Sound's a big one. If it's no budget, then chances are you're not using, a boom operator or a boom mic. You're just probably using your phone or a camera, and you're just using the mic on the camera. If that's the case, make sure that your audio levels are good and that you can hear the people on the camera. It's hard to say because I don't know the level for what you're looking at. But if you're saying that you're doing a low to no budget film, I suspect that this is, home movie type thing. Just have fun, man. Have fun and watch your camera angles. Make sure people are lit correctly. That there's enough light. Remember that there's enough light. You always need more light when you're shooting. It's in post-production if you want to darken it a bit or, put in some high contrast or something. Always make sure you have enough information and enough light to be able to play around a little bit in post. If it's too dark when you shoot, that information doesn't exist then when you go to actually put it into your editing software, and you can't lighten it up because then you're just going to blow it out because the information doesn't exist. Whenever they're shooting film, if you see a very dark scene in a movie, it's dark when they're shooting it, but it's not as dark when they're shooting it as it looks like in the movie. That's because of post-production. They've darkened that a bit in post, boosted some of the contrast. It's always brighter than what it actually looks like in the film. I don't mean lit up like a Christmas tree, but it's always brighter because you need that light because the camera needs to pick up the information. You know what I mean? And so just watch your shadows, watch your lighting, pay close attention to that. Watch your sound, make sure you can hear everybody. If you're out in the street, make sure no cars are going by, and people are close to the camera, they're not far away, and don't be afraid to use different angles. One of the things that really helps a low budget, no budget home movie have a little bit of that kind of professional vibe is shooting your scenes a couple of different ways and then cutting them together. Don't have it one shot from the face up every single fucking shot. You know what I mean? Maybe you have a master shot, of two people sitting at a table. So you see them both in the frame and then you go in for close-ups, right? So you have to shoot that scene maybe 10 times. So you shoot a master of them talking, and then you go up for a close-up and you shoot the guy talking again, reciting his lines again. And then you shoot the girl talking and saying her lines again. And then in post, you cut between them, right? And it's more visually interesting to watch rather than just watching this one shot. You know what I mean? Same if you got people sitting on the couch or you got people in a car, or whatever the case is. It's a lot of work. But if you want to create a little bit of that professional vibe, then your movie will have, different angles and different cuts within one scene. You know what I mean? You don't go overboard. You don't start getting funky and, shooting low and when it's unnecessary. But I think you know what I'm talking about, right? Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. All right, let me see here. Frank Riker sends in another super. Oh, no. That was the one I did answer. Okay, cool. Cool stuff. All right. Amstel54 says, Dave, would you quit voice acting if your subscriber count got high enough? Probably not, because in order to make a living, like a substantial living I mean, I'd have to have millions of subscribers and millions of views. But even then, I don't think I would quit because I enjoy what I do. You know, like this channel as is right now, I'm not making a living off this channel. I mean, this is everything that's made from the channel goes back into the channel, right? For the guests, for the equipment, you know, for the software, and schedules a time for these shows so I can do these shows and things like that. Goes all right back into the channel. And but if one day I was to have like 1 million subs and 1 million views per, you know, I was like a Joe Rogan or something, all of a sudden I'm getting like, you know, 9 million views. I'm making, I think at that point, then I wouldn't necessarily quit voice acting. I'd be doing this because it takes up so much time. The more subscribers you have, the more views you have, the more that your channel grows, the more attention to that channel you have to give it, right? So, you know, but my plan is not to quit though. I really enjoy it. You know, I enjoy being a part of that, being part of voice acting and being a part of the entertainment industry that way. It's pretty cool stuff. But it's a good question, though. I know what you're talking about. Lauren Downing says, will you give a shout out to my 19-month-old son, Wyatt? Wishing him luck in your Freddy voice. He's having surgery this Thursday, and he'll get a kick out of that. Congrats on 20K. In my Freddy voice, he's having... Okay, what do we got here? Wyatt, he's having surgery. Ooh, how do I do this here?
Maybe I get down to you like this. Wyatt, I want to wish you good luck in your surgery. I have no doubt that you'll do well. I'm going to come and give you good dreams.
There you go. There you go, Wyatt. Good luck, buddy. Good luck. I'm sure Wyatt will do well. He will do well. Franklin Stein says, Dave, what do you think about movies with social commentary today compared to yesteryear? I feel writers are talented enough to do it subtly and well, I'm okay with it as long as it's not preachy and in your face like the remake of Black Christmas was. And I think when you, unless the idea, listen, I mean, if it's some sort of biopic or if it's something, I mean, you know, you can't, but if it's seeped into IPs and narratives that are built on a foundation that otherwise are not about that, and you come along and say, you know what, I'm going to create a film and this is going to be the identity. I didn't like what Blumhouse did with Black Christmas, not because I don't think filmmakers should not have the right to express their feelings. Sophia Takal and April Wolf, I think was her writing partner. I think that's great. Look, I may not particularly be interested in the subject matter that you want to sort of, you know, put out there. That's fine. It might not be my cup of tea. That's okay. But I think you should have the opportunity to do it. I just think when you're doing it, I can't help but feel that they were using the Black Christmas IP to then push this. And I don't like that. And it was rated PG-13 and not R, so they could get young girls in the audience. And that's okay in and of itself, but it doesn't feel organic. It feels shoehorned in. It feels cheap and gimmicky and preachy, too much on the nose. You're utilizing the IP of Black Christmas to push a certain narrative. And the audiences, by and large, are too smart for that. And it cannot all be boiled down to just, you know, sexist white guys who just didn't. It's not about that. Are there sexist white guys out there? Yeah, there are also sexist black guys, Asian guys, and you know, Aboriginal guys. I mean, it doesn't matter. Sexism exists everywhere. But I think when it becomes too on the nose, people don't like to be told what to think. And if they feel like they're being told what to think, how to think and what to feel, it rubs people the wrong way. Anybody. It doesn't matter what the narrative is. I think ideally they should have just called the movie Slay Girls and let the parallels to Black Christmas sort of, you know, fall where they may. And some people might be like, it's kind of like Black Christmas. But you let it thrive on its own merits. I think calling it Black Christmas was a mistake, and it rubbed people the wrong way, and the box office says that. And there can be all the excuses, oh, people just didn't want to go. Well, it's not just that. You can't boil every time a movie fails that has a female lead or a female, director, or it can't be boiled just down to that one thing. Sometimes it can be that, but they're not mutually exclusive to each other. There are other reasons why these films fail. And, so it's a tricky thing to me. It's a tricky thing. But I think largely, I'm okay with social commentary, Franklin, as long as it feels organic within the movie, because I can't complain. Well, that's what the movie is. But when it felt like they were just piggybacking on the coattails of the Black Christmas IP to drive a narrative, and that's just too preachy. It's too preachy to me. I'd feel about it the same way if it was something I agreed with or that I was really into. I'd be like, why are you doing it with this? Don't do that with this. Just go do your own thing. Yeah. It's crazy though, man. It's a crazy world out there. It's a fucking crazy world. God, it's a crazy world. Let me see here. Oliver Mercer says, hey, Dave, congratulations. Would there be anything that scares you in real life? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think, I'm not particularly afraid of spiders, but, you don't want a spider crawling all over you, especially unannounced. You know what I mean? But I can't think of anything. Maybe just making sure that I live a fulfilling life to the best that I can. I mean, we're all going to die, obviously, at some point. So I think that would be something that I think I'd want to do, is just live a fulfilling life. You know what I mean? And just kind of, scared that maybe I don't do that, but I got to think about that. I don't know. Is there anything specific that I'm afraid of? Not really. I'm a pretty chill guy. Nick Kunda sends in a super chat and says, it's my 18th B-Day today, Dave. Love your work. Well, thank you so much, Nick. I really appreciate it. Happy birthday to you, man. The big 18. Enjoy it. I remember when I turned 18 in 1997, 23 years ago. So, 23 years ago. So enjoy your birthday, and I hope you have an awesome day, whatever it is you're going to be doing today. Just awesome stuff, man. Awesome stuff. Caleb Ella says, what do you think of the sequel? What do you think the sequel to Life would be? The sequel to Life? You mean like, do I believe life after death exists? Or are you talking about the movie Life? Because there is a movie Life. Isn't that the one with Eddie Murphy? And a little more context, buddy, and I will do my best to answer that. Andrew Allen says, Dave, what's your go-to fast food? It's going to sound really lame. Maybe Subway. And it's not really like real fast. Subway, pizza, maybe. Something like that. Wendy's is really good. Yeah. I'm not too picky when it comes to fast food. Like, I'll even eat McDonald's. I haven't had McDonald's in years, but I'm not one of, if I ate it all the time, maybe I'd get sick of it, but I could go for like a McDonald's Big Mac fries. Yeah, because I haven't had it in like 10 years or whatever. I don't really have a go-to per se though. But I definitely like, chips and chocolate and things like that. I have a bit of a sweet tooth and a salty tooth for chips. It's not good. I try to stay away from that as much as I can. Let me see. Did Caleb? Okay, he hasn't responded yet. Tree, good name. Tree says, Dave, I just watched Avatar for the second time. I watched it because you were talking about it. Really good film. Love the nighttime shots. You ever going to watch Avatar on your channel? I love Avatar too. I think it's, or Avatar as well, I should say. I think it's a great movie. And I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. I think in a lot of cases, it gets unfounded hate, because it became the highest grossing movie of all time, largely because of 3D ticket sales. But so did, Avengers Endgame, largely because of 3D ticket sales. So I think I think I don't like the arguments that are used around why people don't like it. Well, it's just Pocahontas. Well, it's just dances. Yeah, and there are 30,000 other examples of movies you unabashedly fucking love that are just such and such in such and such, and such in such and such. If Avatar had not become the highest grossing movie of all time, nobody'd be fucking talking like that. Nobody be talking about like that. Nobody would. If Avatar had made 1.5 billion at the box office and had been a pretty cool movie and just that was it, nobody'd be like, oh, fuck Avatar. No, it's because it became the highest grossing film, and for some people it just kind of rubbed them the wrong. That's the highest grossing. That is the highest grossing. That's essentially what happened. And I'm just like, yeah, but Star Wars ain't original either. Star Wars ain't original either, man. And when I say original, I mean, there's very few original themes and stories and concepts. A lot of these things are based on mythology and religion and stories that have been told for decades and generations. There's just new ways of telling them, and I loved it. I thought it was great. It was and I love that there was something for everybody. I thought it was a very entertaining, cool movie, man. Something we hadn't seen before in that way. I was entertained. Thought it was great. Great. I'm looking forward to seeing what James Cameron does with the sequel. Do I think the sequel's a little late? Yep. But you never count out James Cameron. I go, fuck Avatar. I mean, it's a different climate. Movies, do I think Avatar 2 is going to become the highest grossing movie of all time? Probably not. But it's James fucking Cameron. And he's not just making movies, he's a technology innovator. The cameras that they used to shoot the original Avatar didn't exist before Avatar. He's like a Lucas. He's an innovator. Because Cameron, I believe, before he was a director, he came from I think he was an art director or something. He was like a Tim Burton or something. He comes from that kind of a back. He's an innovator. Cameron, now I don't think this will be in Avatar 2. I think it's still a little too early for that. But Cameron is playing around with no glasses 3D technology. So you can go to a movie, watch a 3D movie, and not wear glasses. I mean, I'd have these on, obviously, because I got to be able to see the screen, but wouldn't have 3D glasses on. That's fucking wild. It's fucking wild. He's always taking things to the next level, So you never count him out. You never count him out, man. I liked it. Thought it was fine. I don't think it. I think it's spite. It's spite. There were people that wanted Endgame to pass Avatar for spite. I mean, that's people just no fucking you. Hey, a lot of your favorite movies are not original, folks. And I mean original in the sense that they are drawing from stories that have been told forever. There's lots of things like that. All right, 2 more minutes, then we will call it a day. That'll bring us to about 2 hours here. 2 more minutes. Darwin Smith says, love you, Dave. Please remind the world how many times Loomis shot Michael. How many? Where'd you go? Oh no, Darwin, where are you? Here you are. Shot Michael. My 6-year-old even knows he's not human. I shot him 6 times. He's not human. You couldn't have shot him 6 times. No man can take 6 shots. I'm telling you, this isn't a man. Shut up, you goddamn sorry-ass excuse for a sheriff. There you go, buddy. Super chat comes in from the 31st Slasher Production. Says, hey Dave, been a viewer for quite a while. I'm currently studying film at university. You've been a true inspiration on my filmmaking studies. Thanks for the great content. Well deserved 20K. Well, thank you very much for supporting the channel here today, and good luck on your film studies, man. Just be true to yourself, be passionate, dive right in. It ain't going to be easy. There's going to be shit you're going to go through. There's going to be heads you're going to butt with fellow filmmakers and creatives. But just know that you all share a common goal. You all want to make the movie good, and just talk. Always talk through things, work hard, and just think that, hey, we're making a movie. That's fucking cool. And it ain't easy. I believe in you, buddy. Keep up the great work. And yeah, I mean, just put your, pedal to the metal, baby. Pedal to the metal? Is that it? Did I say that right? Anyway, whatever the fuck I'm trying to say. You know what I'm talking about. Tyler Trigg says, thoughts on Midsummer. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as I liked Hereditary, but I liked it. And I actually think that if I watched it again, I would like it a bit more. Now, I will say that there were some creative decisions that were made in terms of the characters' motivations that I had trouble buying into. I just was like, I would have fucking left. I would have left. I would not have waited that long to leave. Now, I understand that there was justifications for why they couldn't leave and didn't leave. I get that. But I just, there were a couple things I was like, I'm not really buying it. Not really buying it. But overall, I love the attempt. I love the approach. I love the effort. And I think this guy is an incredibly talented filmmaker, and I can't wait to see what he does next. Hereditary, absolutely loved. Blood 1987 says, Dave, would you like to see a Joker? What would you like to see in Joker 2? Man, that's a loaded question. I really don't want to see a Joker 2. But if they do a Joker 2, juvenile joke. If they do a Joker 2, keeping it grounded. Don't introduce Batman. This is Joker's story. Keeping it maybe a year later from where you left off, and nurture the relationship of Arthur Fleck. Let's see his character develop. See him become a little wiser. He's always going to be a bit simple. He's always going to be a little, but see him become a little bit wiser because of the people that are now surrounding him, and sort of the yes people he surrounds himself with, the people that challenge him. Because even though he might be the head honcho, he's got other people around him that maybe there's a dynamic there. People want to take him over because he's a little too. Just nurture that. Nurture the relationship of Arthur Fleck. That's what I want to see. Bruce Wayne. I don't want to see this like 10 years later and Bruce Wayne is Batman now. I'm Batman. No, in the sequel, Bruce Wayne is still, maybe if he was say 12 or 10 in Joker, he's 13 now or something. Like he's not he's still a little kid. Nurture the Joker relationship. That's what I would like to see. All right, folks, that is going to do it for me here on episode 16 of McRae Live, celebrating 20,000 subscribers. Again, I want to thank each and every one of you that tuned in and asked questions and sent in super chats, of course. Thank you for supporting the channel that way. I really appreciate it. As usual, if I did not get to your question, it is not personal. Now, I always get to the super chat ones, of course, for obvious reasons, but those of you that were sending in regular questions, which of course are awesome and I really appreciate it, if I didn't get to it, it's never personal. You guys know that. There's just so many people in the room, so many questions going by. I like to be thorough. Some people might think I'm too thorough, but you know what? You guys deserve that. You're tuning in. You're asking questions. You don't want just some half-ass answer, right? You want me to think about it and kind of, because I take it seriously. You guys are amazing, and thank you for tuning in. I really do appreciate your support and continued support. We're growing a community here on this channel, and hopefully this channel will continue to grow. And again, like I said, I will always have some standalone videos as well coming. I might have another one coming maybe today or tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. But I think you guys are amazing. So in the meantime and in between time, that is going to do it for me. Have a great rest of your week. I will see you. If I don't do a standalone video between now and Thursday, I will see you, because I may have one, but I definitely will be back on Thursday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on McRae Live. So that will do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.